Hi, this is Howard Cooper, and before we jump into this podcast interview, I just wanted to share that I've been lucky enough over the last couple of years to have interviewed a bunch of other leading therapists and agents of change, really exploring their take on everything rapid change related. What you're about to see was recorded a little while ago, but it still holds tremendous value if you're someone that wants to learn about how to help people make quick behavioural shifts. So I hope you enjoy, and to make sure you don't miss any of the new releases, then take action and click that subscribe button, and then you'll be kept in the loop when any new episodes come out. Welcome to the Rapid Change Matters podcast. My name is Howard Cooper, and for over 14 years now, I've been fascinated with helping people to create personal change quickly. But I still come across many who believe that lasting personal change has to take a long time, consisting of reliving traumas or deep psychological analysis, or simply that flawed notion that understanding why you have a problem will somehow make it go away. I'm on a mission to get people who work therapeutically with others to shift their thinking and realise that these beliefs are not written in stone. Rapid change can happen. So, to help you open up to what's possible, I'm interviewing top therapists and agents of change who are out there getting real results with real people really quickly. Before we get to the interview, I just wanted to let you know that I've written a quick-to-read, downloadable PDF on 5 strategies to amplify your client's response, with some great tips on getting your therapeutic suggestions to really sizzle. You can download this for free from rapidchange.works, where you can also find all the information about this episode and episodes still to come. Now, over to the interview. Today, I'm sitting here, albeit digitally, with Rory Z Fulcher, stage and street hypnotist, hypnotherapist, author and founding director of HypnoTC, the Hypnotherapy Training Company. As well as being featured on BBC Radio and numerous publications in the UK, he's widely known for his expertise in the area of rapid inductions, and has shown many how to induce altered states in others incredibly quickly. Welcome, Rory.
Thank you for having me, Howard.
Absolute pleasure. So let's kick off and jump straight in. Tell us a little about yourself, what you do, and how you got started.
Well, I set out as initially self-taught in the industry. I learned from one book initially and set out and stopped myself from smoking, and then I sort of went on to help my family with conditions to a point where I felt confident to actually go and start charging people and helping people as a career, albeit a fairly slow starting career. I've been doing it now for about 12 years. The last 5 or 6 years it's been my full-time job. Before that, I've done other things in conjunction as well. That said, obviously you mentioned the stage and street stuff. I initially wanted to be a performer. I did music at college, and it turns out that I am in no way musical whatsoever. So I thought, what else could I do? And with the knowledge of hypnosis and an idea about stage hypnosis and what it was, I thought, yeah, that could be something. So I did a 2-day course and set out immediately after that and started actually doing hypnosis shows, which it potentially a rocky start after just 2 days training, but it went quite well, and that's something that I like to tell people to do. You know, if you're gonna do this hypnosis thing, the best way to learn to do it is to actually practice and have a go at it. So yeah.
So would you say, because there's a lot of people out there who are, and I use the word practicing in inverted commas, practicing hypnosis, and what they mean by that is they're reading a lot of stuff and they become walking encyclopedias of knowledge about it, but aren't necessarily out there actually applying it. So is it fair to say that actually what you've done is go out and create a kind of grounded, practical, experience-based entry into this?
Yeah, that, like you say, and that was an entry into it. And since that point, I've attended various courses and done lots of studying on the subject, etc. But at some point, if you want to do it as a career, you're going to have to start actually practicing it. And I say, for me, getting started sooner rather than later tends to be better. And it comes when you're doing your hypnotherapy training as well, or hypnosis training, it will depend on the person, the tutor, the tutors that are training you, because some people don't like to, even when teaching, they don't like to do demonstrations. They don't like people to practice. They just want to talk at you about this stuff and expect you to go and do the rest by yourself. And that's not always the best way to go about it, I find.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a little like trying to learn to play the guitar just by reading the book. No.
Yeah, well, you go to a guitar lesson, right, watch me do it, and now you go home and do it yourself.
Yes.
Good lesson.
So, what would you say to people who maybe lack confidence and have all this great information? They're very knowledgeable, but they just lack that little part of them that goes, "Can I actually go out and do this?"
I think they should get some parts therapy. No,
Well,
it is literally a case of the it's an irrational belief. What is the worst that's going to happen? If it fails when you try it, is your world going to end? Probably not. You might look a little silly potentially, but that's probably the worst thing that's going to happen. So it's just a case of suck it up, princess. And I would liberally apply that to myself as well, because I was in the very same boat when I started, and I thought, well, what if this doesn't work? That's going to suck. I'm going to look like an idiot. Um, and sometimes I did, and sometimes it didn't work, and that's good because I know a lot of hypnotherapists are not necessarily in favor of quoting NLP stuff, but there is no failure. There is only feedback. So I got feedback of what I was doing and whether it was working, whether it wasn't working, and how I could improve it potentially as well. So, just get started, really.
yeah, I quite agree. And it's funny that you mentioned that a lot of people maybe don't like that quote. It's not failure, it's feedback. I think the people that don't like it are the people that don't actually embrace it as a message. They can quote it without actually embodying what that means.
Sure. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you.
So, Rory, tell me, how would you define hypnosis? What is it for you?
Sure. Okay. Hypnosis for me, I say for me, hypnosis for the people that I work with, and if I want to define hypnosis for them, would generally be a highly focused state of attention. Um, and from that point onwards, whatever you choose to do with the hypnosis, it then becomes different, and it becomes not hypnosis. It becomes the entertainment, or it becomes the therapy. The hypnosis is just kind of entering the door to the room where you can then apply other skills and techniques, if that kind of makes sense.
So that's what you said. Hypnosis is for the people you see. What is hypnosis for you, and is that different?
Yeah, I mean, for me, as a subjective experience, hypnosis can involve relaxation, and yet it doesn't always. It can involve a massive focus of attention, but at the same time, it can be exactly the opposite of that, and can be not paying attention at all and going off consciously thinking about something else. So it's a very transient thing in my mind, hypnosis, and it's very subjective based on the person that you're working with.
And you touch upon relaxation, which I think is an interesting area to explore, because certainly being around the field myself, I have seen what I believe to be a trend of progressive muscle relaxation bashing.
Yeah, there is a lot of that around, especially from people who are a fan of the rapid inductions. And I'm not personally in favor of the progressive induction bashing, because I quite enjoy progressive inductions. And even if I'm doing rapid inductions, at any point where you kind of go on to deepen, if you say anything about relaxing, then you are doing some kind of progressive relaxation, really, for all intents and purposes. And the thing with it is that it's a long-standing method, and it is as such because it works. It's something that pretty much everyone can do, really, and it's very reliable. Whereas with rapid inductions, as you probably know, there can be a couple of clients that you will see that rapid inductions don't quite work so well with them. So, and at the same time, if you have someone who's coming in and they have a very stressful life and this is their only opportunity to relax, perhaps it might be better to give them a full hour of progressive induction and a nice long relaxing session rather than, go to sleep, you're fixed, bugger off 5 minutes. They would probably benefit from something more progressive.
So what in your mind, how would you explain to someone who's never come across this field before what a rapid induction is and how does it work to create, we could call it an altered state?
We could. People might disagree, but we could.
Exactly. So
a rapid induction, is just a method of getting people into the state of hypnosis. The state of hypnosis will remain the state of hypnosis, whatever induction you use. It's going to be pretty much the exact same thing. It's just a different route to the same destination. Generally, the way that a rapid induction works will be either confusion or overload. So you're either confusing the conscious mind or you're overloading it, potentially with a shock. And in doing that, you have a moment generally where the conscious mind wonders what's going on, at which point you can direct it into hypnosis. So rather than they're having to consciously think, okay, so why is my hand moving like this? Why are my eyes closed? What's going on right here? Instead, just taking sleep and kind of going into that, it tends to be the easier option for them to do. So that tends to be why it works.
And how is that different from the way in which a slower, and we talked about progressive relaxation, induction might work, given that the destination, as you say, is the same?
The way that I like to put it is, imagine that your full wide awake state is you are standing at the top of a mountain, and to get into hypnosis, you need to get all the way down to the bottom of the mountain. With progressive relaxation, you're going to gradually find a path down the mountain to the bottom, or to as close to the bottom as you can manage, as we sometimes know. With rapid inductions, let's imagine that you're standing at the top of the mountain and you do a base jump and you land about quarter or halfway down the mountain, and then you can make the way down the rest of the way using other methods, and that's kind of a nice analogy for rapid inductions. It's not necessarily going to take you immediately into a full deep state of hypnosis or somnambulism, but it will get you along the way.
Sure. Would you say there are people who are, if someone is anxious about hypnosis, maybe they perceive it, have some misnomers around how it's perceived, be that around mind control, or they see it as some kind of dark arts, would you suggest that they don't respond as well to rapid inductions, that they need a gradual tapering down so that they have reassurance, or actually can that work for you, their kind of anxiety around it?
Yeah, that's a kind of a common question on a theme, is which traits are best for going into hypnosis. Which professions, which gender, which age, all of that kind of stuff. Generally, you find it doesn't particularly matter. So an anxious person could be good or could be not so good at going into hypnosis. The key thing is educating them and having a really strong pre-talk. So, covering all of the things that they could potentially be worried about. And at the same time, if your pre-talk doesn't necessarily do it, there's no reason that you need to do a formal induction, because a lot of the stuff that we do, you can do eyes open, and just by getting into that state of focus, they will eventually, become hypnotized to some degree, and there's a whole culture of eyes open hypnosis. So it's a thing.
Yeah, there certainly is indeed. So what for you are some of the key aspects of a good, decent pre-talk, and is indeed a pre-talk fundamentally necessary?
I wouldn't say a pre-talk is 100% necessary 100% of the time. I don't know if you've seen, there are videos, or there were videos, I know, that especially a guy who used to go up to people in the street and hypnotize them and turn them into hypnotic statues and then bugger off. I think they may have been removed from YouTube as we speak now, potentially, or I'm just terrible at searching. But obviously there was no pre-talk with that. He'd just walk up to people and sleep, stick there, bugger off. So yeah, you don't necessarily need it, and it will depend on what the client or what the person who you're working with comes to you within their mind. Because if they have already experienced hypnosis, at that point, and they had a successful experience, you're probably not going to have to do too much pre-framing with that. Whereas if it's someone who is completely skeptical and they have a ton of beliefs that are untrue, myths, they're going to be turned into a chicken, give out their bank details, pass out, going to die, I don't know. There are all sorts of things that people could believe. And the key thing with that is dispelling those beliefs to a level where they feel more comfortable and where they are happy to allow it to happen, because obviously if they don't want it to happen, it's not going to happen.
So just shifting into a slightly different gear, where do you stand on being content free?
I will not stand on that generally very often. I like the idea that techniques can be content free, but anything that you do has content. It's not content free. If you're working content free, it's not. It's that you don't know what the content is. They know what the content is, so therefore it is 100% not content free. The only way it's content free is if someone comes into your office and says, there's something wrong with me, I don't know what it is, and I don't know what I want, fix it. That's content free, and good fucking luck. Right? Apologies for swearing, but it's true. There are some techniques and methods that are said to be content free, but rather than being content free, they kind of work with metaphorical constructs to some extent. So like changing. There's a common one, it's the spinning technique. I don't know if you've heard of that. And I believe it's just, you take the feelings inside, you pull them out of your body, you figure out which way they're spinning, then spin them in the opposite direction, stick them back in your body. I think that's, if you can confirm that, and that's pretty much what it is.
That's pretty much the outline, yeah.
Yeah, and you could potentially say to some extent that's content free, but what's the feeling? There's a feeling there. The feeling has some reason. It's so that is the content right there. And at the end of the day, taking that down to kind of brass tacks, it's a pretty lame version of a submodality shift, where you're only working on the feeling rather than anything visual, anything auditory, anything the internal dialogue that goes along with these things that could make it a much more powerful technique. So yeah, content free generally isn't. I don't tend to subscribe to that label or that mode of thinking, because I think it's not very helpful.
Are there any dangers of setting out to work rapidly with people? And if so, what would you say they are?
I have an issue with the question.
It's okay.
I don't set out to work rapidly with people. That's not my intention. That's not my goal. Again, that's another thing that's fairly common at the moment. I can get a client to come in and out of my office in 15 minutes. Done. So yeah, like I say, I don't tend to set out for rapid change to get it done and over and done with as quick as possible. I generally would set out to help someone to change as quickly as they have the potential to change. And sometimes you may get a client and you think, well, this is going to take a few sessions, and after the first session, then they start improving much more rapidly than you would have thought, and vice versa. It can happen the other way. You think, well, they're going to be great, and then they see you for like 3, 4, 5, 6 sessions. Again, I don't think I've particularly ever gone above like 4 or 5 sessions with someone, aside from kind of conversational work, and that's a big part of what I do as well, is just talking to people, seeding suggestions indirectly as well. And I find that to be very effective, even if they, even if they know kind of what's going on. You're having these deep conversations. They're thinking, well, I think you're probably doing therapy with me right now, aren't you? No, me? Would I ever do that? But yeah, some of the indirect work can be equally as effective as the direct hypno work as well. I think we've gone off on a massive tangent there. Sorry about that.
No, no, I love cutting a long story sideways. It's always good. That's where the best conversations happen. I mean, I think we're quite aligned in terms of some of the ways that we view, what rapid means. For me, it's doing something as quick as it can be done, rather than, and I can't remember whether I shared this on any of the other podcasts, but I know when we spoke last, I think I probably shared it with you, ringing round a bunch of therapists to see, what would they do for a fear of flying when I first started, and being
Hmm.
shocked by the number of people who said, well, we offer a 10-session approach. And I remember saying, well, what would happen if I was okay after two? And they said, you won't be. Um,
Yeah.
and in many ways that was a great, their suggestion landed, because I certainly came off the phone thinking, well, yes, you're right, they couldn't help me in two.
Hmm.
You know, that's the
That's not
power of
not to
hypnosis right there.
not to say that you couldn't be helped into.
Yeah.
Well, like going back to the example that you quoted, and especially with phobias, they tend to be the most rapidly fixable quotation marks things that you can work with. Phobias you can tend to shift in one session, and that's not the law. I'm not saying that every phobia session will be one session, but in my experience, it does tend to happen that way. Uh, a great one that I tell quite frequently is about a friend of a friend who had, sorry, a crippling arachnophobia, fear of spiders. She was 24 at the time, and her phobia was so prolific that her partner, who was 2 years older, prior to meeting her, had no worries and no fears at all. And within the course of their relationship, she had conditioned him to be afraid of spiders as well, just because of her reaction, her response to them. Um, and that was a case of, I went over there, had an initial consultation for like 10, 15 minutes, did 15 minutes of hypnosis. Um, and at the end of it, whereas before she would not have gone in a room with a spider, I actually brought a spider with me in a jar because I'm that kind of guy. And I said, okay, so here's this spider in a jar. How do you feel about that? She's like, well, that's a spider in a jar. Would you be happy to hold the jar? Sure. Would you be happy then to open up the jar while you're holding it? Yeah. And how about tipping the spider on your hand? Um, yes. And she did. And, scuttled off her hand, and she was like, "Well, actually, that was absolutely fine." Um, and a lot of people, as you say, they wouldn't envisage that ever happening. To go from can't be in a room with something to okay, let's just stick it on her hand. And that's a huge thing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be spiders. Someone who has smoked for 40 years of their life, 20 to 30 cigarettes a day, can go in one session to not smoking. Um, and I've had plenty of those, but at the same time, with some of these things, they will take longer. You will have to take different approaches to them. And I've had other smokers who've had to come back for 2, 3, 4 sessions. So it's not always going to be rapid change, but if the person that you're working with, if they're responsive and if you feel they're able to, then why not make the change happen faster rather than, like you say, yeah, we're going to do 10 sessions, whether you'll change or not. You probably won't. If you tell them they're going to change on the 10th session, that's when they will change, because that's hypnosis. You're telling them what's going to happen,
Mhm.
pretty much. So,
Tell me, Rory, would you say that people who come and see you, for them, hypnosis is a first port of call, Or are you, in some cases, that kind of, I've tried everything and nothing else has worked?
A great majority of the time, it would tend to be the latter. I'm sure it's probably fairly similar for a lot of hypnotherapists. And for a lot of hypnotherapists who are seeing clients who are fresh and kind of approaching themselves, because if you're having lots of referral clients, then that may be slightly different because they may just see how well their friend is doing, something like that, and think, oh, okay, well, rather than doing this thing that I was planning on doing, I'll probably go and try hypnotherapy instead. But yeah, generally, people approaching cold of their own volition, I find it's more likely to be a kind of last port of call. But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, certainly not. Um, whose work methodology has had the biggest impact on you and the way in which you work?
Um, I mentioned him earlier, but Milton Erickson, like the way in which he worked was spectacular and so focused on exactly, what the client came with. Um, no two approaches the same, and working with the clients, well, their beliefs, with their habits, with their hobbies, with their own personal situations, and that's something that I kind of aspire to myself. So and the fact that he's just there has been so many books written about him. There have been so many the videos all over YouTube. I don't know why people don't research the methods that he used, because so many of them were so effective.
Who would you recommend? Are there any books specifically you would recommend reading for someone who is interested in change work?
Oh, there are tons out there. Some of the kind of key ones. For me, I don't tend to enjoy reading textbooks as much as I'm not going to say fiction, but something that is more conversationally laid out. Which if you've read my books, then you will probably see that in the way that I deliver them. But something like My Voice Will Go With You. That's a great book on Milton Erickson and his approaches. Also, I found to be a big help Monsters and Magical Sticks. That was great, a great read, and um, shows you again how to kind of work outside the box, which is always a nice thing to consider doing.
So,
Yeah.
have you got any advice for people who want to get really good at this kind of stuff?
Yeah. The key thing is practice, really. Um, Whether you are learning yourself via books and YouTube videos or whatever, podcasts, obviously, or if you're taking formal training, a massive part of that needs to be practice. And whether it's practicing on your friends and your family, which, as we know, that can sometimes be difficult when you're starting out because they don't know you as the hypnotist or the hypnotherapist. So there's that whole dynamic to work on. But a good way to do that and get practice is friends of friends. People who might not know you in such a way, and then get an introduction as a hypnotherapist can be quite helpful. Uh, but at the same time, working on yourself is a very useful thing, and that's not necessary. You're not going to be able to get rapid induction practice and like do a hand drop on yourself, and that kind of thing doesn't tend to work. But just getting an idea of how to speak to people in a way that resonates, how to deliver suggestions, and that's pretty much that's what hypnosis is. It's suggestion and the delivery of said suggestion. And a huge part of the training that I do, that I deliver, is teaching people how to come up with their own suggestions for specific conditions, specific problems. Because if you can then do that on off the top of your head, the spur of the moment, then it's going to make you a much more effective therapist.
Obviously, we're going to put some links on the episode guide and on the
Sure.
website. But if people are listening to the podcast and they want to hear more from you, they want to know more about the training that you offer and the sort of stuff that's out there that you can show them, how should they go about getting in touch?
Okay, sure. If you want to learn about rapid inductions and stage and street hypnosis and that kind of thing, the more fun stuff, which, even if you're not necessarily going to be doing street hypnosis, stage hypnosis, as a therapist, I think there is a massive crossover with that. And again, it comes down to effective delivery of suggestions. And it's a great confidence builder as well. You actually, get to go out, you do hypnosis, during my workshops. I do a 1-day workshop for rapid hypnosis. I have hypnotherapists come along. I have people who have never experienced any kind of hypnosis come along. And by the end of the day, everyone's hypnotizing everybody else. And they can see that it's working and they can feel that it's working. And for a lot of hypnotherapists, that's something that could be missing from their practice. So yeah, that's one thing. Also, like books and DVDs and stuff are available on that website. But if you're more into hypnotherapy training and you're looking at doing that as a career, or even topping up training that you've already had, because we've actually retrained a fair amount of people who've gone through months and years of training and were still unconfident in actually going out and helping people, which is unfortunate, really. But yeah, that's if you go to our website, which is hypnotc.com, I'm sure the link will be in the description. There's loads of videos, loads of blogs, and there you can come along to a free taster day, meet us, do some fun therapy stuff, ask any questions that you like, and potentially come along to our full international training course, which is pretty cool.
It's very cool, and I know you've been all over the shop of late. Is it in India you were doing training in?
Yes. Worked for sort of what's the word? A business organization. Let's go with that. Yeah, I went over to India and did some hypno lectures for a business organization, and that was really cool. Sri Lanka as well, which they told me is India light, and I would tend to agree with them. But yeah, very very good experience. So yeah, doing this hypno stuff can take you all across the world, if you are willing, and if it's something that you potentially would like to do. So yeah, you can see the world by doing this job. It's great.
Very, very cool. Rory, tell me, when we agreed and we talked about, let's do the podcast for rapid change, were there any things that you thought, do you know what, thinking about this topic of rapid change, it'd be really useful to share with people, but actually I haven't asked directly?
I don't know, like we've kind of alluded to, the key thing with making rapid change happen is working with the person that you have in front of you, and whether that comes down to choosing the right induction or choosing the right approach. Some people prefer a direct approach, some people prefer the whole thing metaphorically, just telling stories and things like that. But by managing to figure out what that correct approach is, that will make your change more rapid in and of itself. And sure, there are tons of like quick fix, content free, all of these kind of things, and in the right place and in the right time, they could potentially work at helping to facilitate rapid change. But generally, to make rapid change happen, you just need to have a lot of experience, which obviously, if you're starting out, that will come with time, assuming you actually go out and do it, which you need to. So it's having that experience and having a whole toolbox of different techniques and different approaches that you can use with people when appropriate to use them, and figure out which ones potentially aren't appropriate and aren't going to work quite as rapidly for them. And for me, that's how rapid change works. TM.
I like it. Well, listen, it's been great chatting, and thank you so much for giving up your Wednesday morning to talk about all things rapid change related. Everyone, if you're interested, you can check out all the links, as we said, on the iTunes guide and on the rapidchange.works website. And on behalf of myself and the listeners, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, why not share it with anyone you think might be interested, and even head over to iTunes to give us a glowing review. You'll find more about what's coming up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/rapidchangeworks. And of course, you'll find all the links related to this episode, plus those free 5 steps to getting your suggestions to sizzle over at rapidchange.works.